Hello everybody. Let's talk about Stardew Valley. More generally, let's talk about the farming game genre. And even more generally, let's talk about the scheduling game genre. Stardew Valley, in case you've never played it, is this. It's an old school game about farming. It's got a lot of people who love it, and I'm sure that it's got a lot of people who hate it, but it's definitely a niche game. There's not a whole lot of people who like the idea of just spending all your time farming. But there are a lot of people who really enjoy it, and there are a surprising number of people who don't think they'll enjoy it, but when they try it, they really do. So what's up with that? This genre rests on a very powerful concept. Everything is two-phase. So every day there are chores that you have to do, and then when you're done with your chores, you can do whatever else you want to do in the game. Because of that duality, you always know exactly where you sit every morning. Every morning you get up and you water your plants and you harvest whatever needs to be harvested. You plant whatever needs to be planted. You go over and you pet your ducks and your horses and your pigs and your cows and your whatever, your chickens. You harvest all of your tree sap and collect all your eggs and all that stuff. It's winter right now. Both of my saves are currently in winter. So none of that stuff applies to me, but that is the basic idea of this game. You have something to do every morning, and it's very relaxing to tend to something and watch it grow. However, as anyone who's played with a Tamagotchi knows, you can't just rely on tending to things. That gets really boring. That's where the second half comes into play. Not only do you tend to things every morning, but every afternoon and evening, you can do whatever you want, and some of those things are going to take up the whole afternoon, like going into the dungeon and diving down a couple more floors. Some of those things might only take a couple of minutes, like going over and talking to someone that you want to meet up with. And of course, you can schedule all that stuff. If you want to meet up with 8 people, you can figure out, go out there and find them and talk to them. You don't look like it's one of your favorite events. You look depressed. You still look depressed. Well, whatever. So, because I finished my morning chores, it being winter, I don't have any, I can now do whatever I want, and I'm going to go down here to the beach. Yay, beach! And there's a lot of stuff to do in this game, and that's one of the secrets of this kind of game. You need to make sure that you provide enough stuff besides the basic farming. The beach is incredibly loud. I hope that's not overpowering my voice. So, Stardew Valley does a lot right. It gets these basics down pat, and it allows you to do a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really think of in a game like this. And there are some characters that are more interesting than the average Farmingville characters. That is to say, they are stereotypes that are not painfully boring, they're just stereotypes that are kind of boring. But Stardew Valley doesn't go very far. There are a lot of things it could do with this genre that it doesn't do. Now, that's not to say this is a bad game. It's probably the best farming sim on Steam. I've played 3, and Stardew Valley is the best of those 3, although one of the other ones is pretty decent. Still, all of these games work off of a really, really archaic set of principles. They're based on the original farming games back in the day, and those farming games were limited by a lot of factors. They never really became a genre. They stayed a single game. So, if you wanted to, you could expand that. You could turn it into a genre. If you understand what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and how you can adapt, you can turn it into a genre and have a much stronger experience because of that. So where does Stardew Valley fall short in its genre making? Well, first things first, winter. Winter is so boring that I haven't been able to get through one. Just so you're aware, that's not saying the game is bad. I still get more than 10 hours into it before winter hits, even no matter how fast I'm working. So, that's not too terrible, but it does mean that the winter is a serious problem. You don't have the same level of scheduling. Every morning when you get up in the winter, it's like, I guess I could check and see whether any trees are bleeding and maybe pet a chicken. Instead of, oh, I'm going to manage, 80 different plants watch them all grow up, harvest them, maybe put some stuff into my winery casks or whatever. So winter is an interruption in the primary game flow, and if you understand what the primary game flow is, you can sort of avoid that. If you know that the whole game is about having that morning schedule to anchor yourself and then having the rest of the day free, you can have the winter have different morning schedules. You can have it so that you do something else, and the game guides you to that very strongly. For example, maybe in the winter, you get an influx of visitors that want to stay at your farm, or maybe you have to take care of a flock of horses or something. There's lots of options for how you could have made winter more interesting. Of course, those options are not quite as adaptive as being able to choose exactly what you want to plant. But they're still more adaptive than not doing anything. Another thing that they fall short on is the marriage. In this game, there are 5 women and 5 men that you can choose to marry, not all at the same time. And they have personalities. The personalities are extremely bland, but they exist. I can't remember whether this is one of them. But once you marry them, there's nothing in them that becomes part of your game. They show up in your house, but aside from just a couple of lines of text that they talk, whenever you talk to them, there's nothing unique about any of them. The only real difference is whether you've got a guy or a lady. There's no, whether you're marrying Penny or Meru or whatever, you're not going to get a different set of gameplay. You're just going to get a different line of text. And that's just not good enough, because this whole game is about schedules and about things that you do after the schedule. Having a loved one, whether it's a wife or a husband, is an excellent opportunity to introduce more scheduling, more things to do in the morning, things to do in the evening, or things to do off schedule in your free time. For example, if you marry the adventurous woman, why not have her run off and have adventures? She can leave, and you won't see her again. And when she gets back, she'll have, cash and a cool thing that she found at the bottom of the mines and stories to tell. But while she's gone, she won't help you tend your crops or your pigs or whatever. And similarly, you could give a little bit of custom play to every single one of the characters. And in doing that, you would make marriage the start of a new piece of gameplay rather than the goal. With these games and all dating sims, one of the big issues is that the goal of the game is to hook up. And once you've hooked up, that's done. But that's not how life is, and that's certainly not how living with a farmer is. So it would be nice if it had some kind of way to integrate those people into your world in a way where they become part of your scheduling. It's part of what you think about every morning. And that wouldn't be hard. It would not take that much, and it would be a lot of fun. You could even take that further. You could have a lot of things where... I was going to actually reset this day when I was done, but I might not now. You could have a lot of things where you don't have to have it just be your wife. You could have random people in town help you out. Random people in town, you can hire them to maybe help you with your chores or with whatever else needs to be done. There's no reason to limit it to just one special person, and it wouldn't even have to be some kind of multiple romance thing. People help on farms. You hire farmhands. That's kind of a big part of the equation. So it bothers me that that's just not happening in this particular situation. And there are a lot of other things you can do. You can tweak it so that your morning and evening affairs have a lot more chunkiness to them. You can make it very deliberate. When the player is thinking about things, you want the player to have a very clear idea of whether he wants to, or whether he or she wants to go on this particular errand or that particular errand, whether or not they can put it off for a couple more days or a couple more weeks, what they can do with their life. by making those things clear, by focusing on that, you could really get a lot further into this setting. You could really make it so the player has a lot to chew on. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that we could talk about regarding this kind of genre and this kind of game. I just wanted to cover it in passing because I'm probably not going to play any more of this game. I can't get through the winters. But the game is pretty good, and I encourage you to try it on yourself if you like this kind of game. And if you don't like this kind of game, it's still worth thinking about scheduling as a gameplay option. Have a good one.